They cannot have expected anything more than just another version of what musical plays always had been. Some songs, some dances, some snappy dialogue, not unlike a vaudeville show. But surely those people knew as they left the St. James that that night, a couple of gents named Rodgers and Hammerstein had changed everything. Charles Osgood, on the night Broadway was reborn.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain, and the waving beat can sure smell sweet when the wind comes right behind the rain.
Until it arrived on Broadway, Oklahoma wasn't even called Oklahoma. This show, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein's first project together, was originally titled Away We Go.
Circles in the sky, we know we belong to the land.
But during tryouts in New Haven, the song Oklahoma turned out to be a showstopper, so Oklahoma was born.
We're only saying you're doing fine, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, okay.
This week, Oklahoma celebrates its 50th year, and it's still immensely popular. There'll be over 600 performances by theater companies and schools this year. And the 50th anniversary has set off a wave of Rodgers and Hammerstein mania.
I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way.
There's this hit review of Rodgers and Hammerstein standards playing at New York's Rainbow Room.
Right out of my arms. We dance.
And a brand new recording of The King and I by Julie Andrews and Ben Kingsley.
Shall we dance? Shall we then say goodnight and mean goodbye?
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high.
Plus, not-so-new re-releases of nearly every recording of every musical the two ever wrote. And of course, new home videos for all the films, like the 1965 Sound of Music.
They paved the way for a whole era that was a great era in the history of the American theater.
Frank Rich is theater critic for the New York Times.
They wrote musical plays that are part of the American mythos. Like them or not, they are built in to the way this country thinks of itself.
When a person tries to kiss a girl, I know she ought to give his face a smack. But as soon as someone kisses me, I somehow sort of want to kiss him back. I'm just a fool when lights are low. I can't be prissy or quaint. I ain't the type that can faint. How can I be what I ain't? I can't say no.
Can't Say No was another hit from Oklahoma. In the play, it was sung by Ado Annie, who knew how to charm cowpokes and audiences alike. Actress Celeste Holm auditioned with Richard Rodgers to create the role.
He said, I want a bald, bold, unedited farm girl voice. I said, I can call a hog. That's fine. So he said, I dare you. So I said, sweet. None came. But he said, well, that was loud enough, and that's funny enough, and that's how I got the job.
Celeste Holm did get the role, but because this was her first musical, she and many of the actors were sure it was doomed.
Most of the company said that it's a horse opera without horses, hasn't got a chance. As I say, we read the script, and then we went downstairs to the stage, and it was an upright piano, and Richard Rodgers played, and Oscar Hammerstein sort of sang, and it was so wonderful.
Let people say we're in love.
The lyrics and the music were so completely wedded. And each song aided and abetted the plot. And I was so excited about it, I couldn't stand it.
Your hand feels so grand in mine. Let people say we're in love.
They redefined how musicals could be written.
Hal Prince, one of today's top Broadway directors, believes Rodgers and Hammerstein triumphed because they refused to settle for the happy-go-lucky, empty-headed plots of earlier musicals. Oklahoma was about pretty serious stuff: power, violence, and murder.
I told you how it was. You wouldn't listen. You ain't never gonna get rid of me. Never.
Their characters were more dimensional. The conflicts were much stronger. And the musical, the book suddenly became as important to the success of the show as the music and lyrics. And that had not been so before.
But Rodgers and Hammerstein wanted still more. So, for the first time in a musical, they added real dance. Frank Rich.
In Oklahoma, Rodgers and Hammerstein added to the mix Agnes DeMille, a serious choreographer who said maybe dancing in a Broadway musical doesn't have to be just entertainment, can actually express something psychological about the characters or the story, and that was unheard of.
Oscar Hammerstein is a gentle, kindly man who writes sentimental love stories for the stage, like Oklahoma, Carousel, and South Pacific.
Rodgers and Hammerstein took on other tough subjects like racial prejudice and hate. But as in this Mike Wallace interview in 1958, they always had to defend themselves against people who called them romantic and corny.
So, in my book, there's nothing wrong with sentiment, because the things we're sentimental about are the fundamental things in life. The birth of a child, the death of a child, or of anybody, falling in love. I couldn't be anything but sentimental about these basic things. I think to be anything but sentimental is being a poseur.
The sentimentality that there is generally genuine. It's not cynical and manipulative in the way that sentimentality is today, particularly sometimes in the musical theater of Rodgers and Hammerstein imitators, like Andrew Lloyd Webber, for instance.
I think what was embarrassingly corny, because we were so cynical, just, we'll say for the last decade, will become acceptable currency right now.
It's a grand night for singing, the moon is flying high, and somewhere a bird who is bound he'll be heard is throwing his heart at the sky.
With a Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein musical, it was always a grand night for singing. 50 years later, many people want to hear more, or maybe catch some new musical worthy of comparison. Frank Rich.
I don't know if musicals they didn't write, such as My Fair Lady, to take an example, would have been possible without what they had done in the 1940s. They invented a form that a lot of people think is the great contribution of American theater so far to world theater.
Oh, what a beautiful morning.